More than 85,000 cops have been investigated or disciplined for misconduct over the past decade, and that is just the beginning. Get all of the details in this episode. What's in the news with stories on Social Security in trouble, collateral damage, bad boys ×3, and a jailed hero update. And an Ask Me Anything segment where I answer your burning questions on homesteading abandoned property, property taken through coercion, reparations for the military draft, the best books for liberty, and my favorite caliber of ammunition. This episode is brought to you by Health Excellence Plus, a health share that has saved my family thousands of dollars and can save you money too. Also brought to you by ForkFest, the third annual decentralized Libertarian camping event that happens right before PorcFest, with no tickets and no one in charge.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that is ranked as the fourth best state to retire in by WalletHub, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at TheLavaFlowPod. This is episode 129, 85,000 Bad Boys. And it's Tuesday, April 30th, 2019, when there have already been more than 300 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $22,246,200 million in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. At least 85,000 law enforcement officers across the USA have been investigated or disciplined for misconduct over the past decade, an investigation by USA Today Network found. 85,000? What the actual fuck? And that number's actually low, as you'll learn more about here in a few minutes. Officers have beaten members of the public, planted evidence, and used their badges to harass women. They have lied, stolen, dealt drugs, driven drunk, and abused their spouses. Despite their misconceived role as public servants, the men and women who swear an oath to keep communities safe can generally avoid public scrutiny for their misdeeds, unlike the rest of us, of course. The records of their misconduct are filed away, rarely seen by anyone outside their departments. Police unions and their political allies have worked to put special protections in place, ensuring some records are shielded from public view, or even destroyed. And of course, our rulers don't want you to know anything about this. Obtained from thousands of state agencies, prosecutors, police departments, and sheriffs, the records detail at least 200,000 incidents of alleged misconduct, much of it previously unreported. The records obtained include more than 110,000 internal affairs investigations by hundreds of individual departments, and more than 30,000 officers who were decertified by 44 state oversight agencies. USA Today Network has gathered discipline and accountability records on more than 85,000 law enforcement officers and has started releasing them to the public, thank goodness. The first collection published is a list of more than 30,000 officers who have been decertified, essentially banned from the profession in 44 different states. Most misconduct involves routine infractions, but the records reveal tens of thousands of cases of serious misconduct and abuse. They include almost 30,000 investigations of officers using excessive force, more than 3,000 allegations of rape, child molestation, and other sexual misconduct, and 2,300 cases of domestic violence by officers. Dishonesty is a frequent problem. The records document at least 2,200 instances of perjury, tampering with evidence or witnesses, or falsifying reports. There were 418 reports of officers obstructing investigations, most often when they or someone they knew were targets, protecting their buddies and their families. Less than 10% of officers in most police forces get investigated for misconduct, yet some officers are consistently under investigation. Nearly 2,500 have been investigated on 10 or more charges. 20 officers faced 100 or more allegations, yet kept their badges for years. Imagine that. The level of oversight varies widely from state to state. Georgia and Florida, for example, decertified thousands of police officers for everything from crimes to questions about their fitness to serve, Other states banned almost none. That includes Maryland, home of the Baltimore Police Department, which regularly has been in the news for criminal behavior by police. Yet, over nearly a decade with all of that going on, Maryland revoked the certifications of just 4 police officers. This list includes the names of at least 5,000 police officers whose credibility as witnesses has been called into question. These officers have been placed on Brady lists, created to track officers whose actions must be disclosed to defendants if their testimony is relied upon to prosecute someone. Seth Stoughton, who worked as a police officer for 5 years and teaches law now at the University of South Carolina, said that expanding public access to these kind of records is critical to keeping good cops employed and bad cops unemployed. He said, "No one is in a position to assess whether an officer candidate can do the job well in the way that we expect the job to be done better than the officer's former employer. Officers are public servants. They police in our name. There is a strong public interest in identifying how officers are using their public authority." For years, a private police organization has assembled such a list from more than 40 states and encourages police agencies to screen new hires. The list is kept secret from anyone outside of law enforcement, of course. USA Today obtained the names of banned officers from 44 states by filing requests under state sunshine laws. The information included the officers' names, the department they worked for when the state revoked their certification, and, in most cases, the reasons why. But keep in mind, this list is woefully incomplete because of the absence of records from states such as California, which has the largest number of law enforcement officers in the entire country. Though the records USA Today Network gathered are probably the most expansive ever collected, there is much more to be added. The collection includes several types of statewide data, but most misconduct is documented by individual departments and not on a statewide level. Journalists obtained records from more than 700 law enforcement agencies, but the records are not complete for all of those agencies, and there are more than 18,000 police forces across the USA. The records requests were focused largely on the biggest 100 police agencies, as well as clusters of smaller departments in surrounding areas, partly to examine the movement of officers between departments and regions. Now, this is important, guys. USA Today wants to hear from you if you believe that you've encountered misconduct by a law enforcement officer or an agency. You can send tips and records about an officer or a police agency to policetips@usatoday.com. Again, guys, that's policetips@usatoday.com. If you have any information on anything like this, please send them an email, guys, please. This report is fucking huge, folks, and it is due to brilliant investigative journalism, something we don't see very much anymore, and certainly not due to our rulers wanting us to have this information. There are about 750,000 police officers in the U.S. today, so more than 10% of these jokers in uniform are scourges to society. And keep in mind, these are only the ones who were caught or who were investigated, and in only a portion of states and police forces. There are many, many more that have never been caught, or in those states and other police forces that weren't in this report. What a disgrace to the profession. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In debt news, Social Security is facing a $42.1 trillion shortfall according to the trustees report. Every year, the Social Security Administration issues a trustees report that summarizes the program's financing. This year is no different. In this year's report, the fiscal burden, or spending, is projected to increase faster than the Social Security income, so the economic burden of Social Security will increase over time. But even more important is that the program is bankrupt, and if spending continues to increase faster than income at the current rate, there will be a $42.1 trillion shortfall. Folks, this is a huge deal. This means that the only way for Social Security to continue as it is would be to put the U.S. in way more than the current $22 trillion in debt. Keep in mind that $22 trillion currently does not include this projected $42 trillion shortfall, or any of it. According to this report, the cost of the program will exceed its income by next year, and by 2035, just 16 years from now, it will be insolvent and unable to pay the full value of promised benefits. Also, Medicaid Part A, which covers hospital and nursing home costs, will be insolvent by 2026. But folks, socialism works. Welfare works. Stealing from Peter to pay Paul, it works, obviously. Look, I'm telling you right now that if you are considering Social Security or Medicare in your retirement planning, then you are an idiot who likely believes that unicorns live on the other side of the flat earth. Figure out a sustainable retirement plan and don't rely on government. In collateral damage news, according to Amnesty International researchers, along with the monitoring group Air Wars, coalition airstrikes in Raqqa, Syria killed at least 1,600 civilians, which is more than 10 times what the U.S. said. Imagine that. Amnesty researchers in Syria were able to directly verify 641 of those deaths and said there were very strong multiple-source reports for the rest. The groups were able to collect the names of more than 1,000 civilians killed. The findings, published along with an interactive database based on 2 years of the on-the-ground investigations, provide the most methodical estimate to date of the death toll from coalition bombing, even as Pentagon officials continue to downplay the damage of the U.S.-led air campaigns. Donatella Rivera, a crisis investigator for Amnesty, said in a video released by the group, "I didn't come to Raqqa with any preconceived ideas of what had or had not happened, but what I came to discover is that little to no protection was afforded to the thousands of civilians who were trapped in the city." Daphne Iviatar, director of the Security with Human Rights program at Amnesty International USA, said, "The public deserves to know how many civilian casualties our government is responsible for, and the survivors deserve acknowledgement, reparations where appropriate, and meaningful assistance to rebuild their lives." According to a statement from Amnesty, the groups regularly engage with the U.S., UK, and French militaries about civilian casualties. As a result, the coalition has admitted responsibility for killing 159 civilians in Raqqa, but the U.S. has dismissed most of the allegations as non-credible. However, monitoring groups have pointed out that it is extremely rare for U.S. personnel to interview eyewitnesses or victims of airstrikes, and they are only likely to concede civilian casualties that are observable by their own intelligence feeds. As a result, over the course of the U.S. anti-ISIS campaign, Air Wars estimates that more than 7,000 civilians have been killed in Iraq and Syria, while as of March, the Pentagon estimated fewer than 1,300 deaths. Rivera says in the Amnesty video, "Essentially what I've been doing here is the work that the coalition should be doing. They have been bombarding the city. They should be here looking at the impact that has on the civilian population." Well, no shit. But you and I both know the U.S. is never going to give two shits about the impacts their bombs have. It's just collateral damage. They never have, and they never will. Nothing new here, nothing to see here. As most of you know, I was laid off from my 9-to-5 director of IT job last summer. Among the many terrifying things about losing your job is losing your health benefits. Our family went about 6 months without any kind of health insurance, and the anxiety and worry that came along with that was not insignificant. But after spending dozens of hours researching our options and quickly rejecting the $2,000 a month price tag that came with the options available with traditional insurance, we found Health Excellence Plus, a health share that was a fraction of the cost, and we're glad we did. Only a few weeks after joining as members of this health share program, my wife was diagnosed with a common skin cancer that requires an expensive procedure to remove the cancer and another surgery to repair the damage done from the cancer removal. When this is all said and done, Health Excellence Plus will have saved our family thousands of dollars, and I'll bet they can save you money too. Health Excellence Plus is a health share that meets the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. A health share is a community of like-minded, health-focused members who have joined together to share each other's medical costs above an amount they can comfortably afford. A health share is not traditional health insurance. It is designed to be a catastrophic coverage for major items, like my wife's surgery. The cost of an average family insurance policy for a primary 45 years old with a $5,000 deductible is $1,450 per month. A Health Excellence Plus $500 initial and shareable amount with a healthcare strategy is only $783. Get started saving money today at thelavaflow.com/health. That's thelavaflow.com/health. In Bad Boys news, in an extremely disturbing video, 4 black men were chained to a table in Lucasville, Ohio prison, while a single white man was allowed access to a knife and brutally stabbed them. The graphic and hard-to-watch video is now the subject of a federal lawsuit filed earlier this month in the Southern District of Ohio. The 2 officers, identified only by their surnames, Faye and Dalton, laughed as 4 inmates were brutally stabbed in June of 2017, according to the lawsuit. The cornerstone of the lawsuit is the surveillance video, showing the horrifying event unfold as 4 men played cards only to be repeatedly stabbed by a psychotic and violent white supremacist. Shamika Pugh and Maurice Lee are the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, which is seeking only $75,000. The suit claims the victims' civil rights were violated, including that they suffered cruel and unusual punishment because of the prison guards' inaction. According to the lawsuit, Pugh, Lee, and 2 other black inmates were strip-searched before they were allowed out of their cells for recreational time. They were then handcuffed to a table. But Greg Renke, who pleaded guilty in the attack, was not strip-searched before he was cuffed to an adjacent table. Renke is identified in the suit as a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, a violent white supremacist group. Guards either gave Renke a key or knew or should have known that Renke had a key or device to unlock his handcuffs. Renke had an 8-inch blade in the attack and had a 12-inch blade in his sock. Faye and Dalton, the guards, stood nearby behind a locked door and laughed as Mr. Pugh, Mr. Lee, and the other inmates were stabbed. 2 of the inmates suffered several stab wounds and heavy bleeding, while the other 2 sustained minor injuries. After one victim escaped his cuffs and tackled Renke, guards pepper-sprayed the victim and not Renke. The guards, including a sergeant identified as John Doe, did not immediately render aid to the victims, and 10 minutes passed before nurses arrived. While the men were bleeding from their stab wounds, one of the guards is heard saying, "We should just let them die." The idea that 4 black men would be strip-searched to make sure that they had no weapons and chained to a table while a white supremacist with a history of stabbings would be unchained right next to them and allowed to initiate such a horrifying attack should shock the conscience. Equally disturbing is the idea that the corrections officers would laugh as these men were being stabbed to death. But this is nothing new. There have been several instances where officers have laughed while people died in their custody. See, to them, we're just serfs who live and die at their pleasure. It's like gladiator games all over again. We certainly are not human to them. Fuck these laughing officers in the neck with a white supremacist with a knife. In more Bad Boys news, a sunbather in California found out there is no SPF strong enough to protect against cars after a police cruiser accidentally ran her over. The incident occurred near the boardwalk at Venice Beach around 2:10 p.m. Sunday when officers were performing a routine patrol of the beach, a spokesperson for the Los Angeles Fire Department said. The victim was a woman between the ages of 25 and 30. Fortunately, medical personnel were present on the beach and provided first aid to the victim. She was transported to a nearby hospital and reportedly did not suffer any serious injuries from the accident. There's no news about whether the driving officer will face any discipline or charges, but if the past is any indication, they will not. Why? Because what they did was not a crime. Now, it is absolutely a crime to run over someone who is standing still and not trying to harm you. The reason they will get away with this is simple. They have shiny badges on their chests and qualified immunity. Hence, no crime. But you can bet that you or I would be in jail after something like this, facing some pretty serious charges. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians this summer from June 13th through June 18th for ForkFest 2019 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens right before the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means that no one is in charge. This also means that there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping or RV site or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 18th. You can simply relax and go camping with other Liberty lovers, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to both of those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. This is the third year of this event, and I have attended all of them so far, so I hope to see you there this year. Get all of the information at forkfest.party. And in even more Bad Boys news, body camera footage was just released showing two Connecticut cops jump out of their vehicles and attempt to murder an innocent, unarmed couple. Stephanie Washington, 22, was hospitalized last week after the two trigger-happy cops opened fire on her and her boyfriend Paul Witherspoon, 21. According to police, officers Eaton and Pollock were responding to reports of a robbery at a nearby gas station when they stopped the vehicle in which Washington was a passenger. Neither Washington nor Witherspoon committed a robbery, as they have not been charged with any crime. As the body camera footage shows, there was no reason for the officers to start shooting, as it appeared the couple was trying to comply and exit the vehicle, but they simply weren't given any time before these trigger-happy cops opened fire. The officers were so crazed in their shooting spree that one of them actually shot one of the other officers. As the video shows, in only seconds, both officers jumped out of their vehicles and began shooting at this innocent couple. After they shot Washington, they then realized the couple was unarmed. Police claim that Witherspoon had a weapon, so they had no other option but to begin dumping rounds into their car. However, a search of the vehicle, video footage from surveillance cameras, as well as the officer's own body camera footage, shows that no such weapon ever existed. What's more, police claim that they opened fire because Witherspoon exited the vehicle in an abrupt manner and turned towards them. However, as the video showed, that never, ever happened. Of course they lied about it. As the video shows, the officers were the only ones who jumped out of a vehicle and then immediately opened fire for absolutely no reason. Trigger-happy cops shoot up an innocent couple for complying with orders to get out of their vehicle, like that's never happened before. This is outrageous. And of course, the claim is they had a weapon, which turned out to be utter horseshit. How many times have we heard this story? Since there is so much evidence in this case, I do finally expect an officer or two to get fired over this. But I will guarantee you there will be no charges. Qualified immunity, indeed. In hero news, Chelsea Manning has been ordered to stay in jail after a federal court rejects her appeal. A federal appeals court has struck down whistleblower Chelsea Manning's bid to be released from jail, where she has been held indefinitely after refusing to testify to a grand jury probe into WikiLeaks. Judges from the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals reaffirmed the charges against Manning on Monday and denied her request to be released. The court said in its decision, "The court finds no error in the district court's rulings and affirms its finding of civil contempt. The court also denies appellant's motion for release on bail. Manning is likely to pursue further appeals." Manning was arrested in March when she refused to provide grand jury testimony related to her disclosure of classified materials in 2010 and her interactions with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. She is to be held for the duration of the grand jury, or until she agrees to answer prosecutors' questions. She's been in jail for 45 days for not talking. Manning's lawyer argued that her rights were violated by the grand jury proceedings and that federal prosecutors used a subpoena to entrap her. The lawyers added that Manning had already given authorities all the information she had during her previous court-martial investigation, and that her confinement is needlessly cruel, as the jail cannot provide proper medical care. You know, I got a lot of shit over calling Manning a hero a couple of weeks ago, even though I qualified that with saying in the episode that I can't stand her politics. Yes, she's a socialist, but that doesn't change the fact that she put her life and liberty on the line to reveal information to us about criminal actions inside the government. Her actions at the time were 100% heroic, and she is still suffering for those actions, even after having her sentence commuted by Obama. I applaud these actions by Manning, and she is still a hero in my book, socialist or not. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode. Or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's that time again. I'm going to answer your burning questions. Remember, you can ask me your questions by adding it to the thread that I post in the Pax Libertas Productions Podcast fans Facebook group or by emailing me at ama@thelavaflow.com. Or, if you happen to be awesome as fuck and you support this show, you can ask me your questions in the Lava Flow Super Supporters Facebook group or in Patreon. A quick reminder, if you are a supporter of this show, whether it's Patreon, Subscribestar, Bitbacker, whatever, and you're not in that super secret supporters Facebook group, definitely let me know so I can get you added to the group. So let's jump right into the questions. First, I'm going to answer more questions from longtime supporter Drake L. He had several questions for me and I answered a couple of those last week. First this week, he asks, at what point can I homestead an abandoned house in Detroit? Can the owner or descendant come and just evict me? Does time lived there or restorations, improvements made by the squatter matter more? You know, this is a question that's going to make me less than popular with the libertarian socialist crowd, and I'm okay with that. You know, in my opinion, if you homestead a home that is owned by someone else, abandoned or not, you can be evicted and should be evicted at any time whenever the property owner says so. Furthermore, if you did any damage to the house, then you owe restitution to the owner. And possibly you owe the owner rent for using their property without their permission. I mean, let's be honest about this, guys. All rights are property rights. Every right that we have stems from property rights. The reason libertarians believe in the non-aggression principle so strongly is it is 100% about your property rights. You have the right to do what you want with your own property, but not the property of others as long as you're not harming someone else. For example, you own your body, so you should be able to shoot heroin into your own veins without issue, as long as you are willing to suffer the consequences of that action. Even that right is a property right. You own your body. If someone owns a property that was squatted, that means they paid their own money for that property, or they were given the property from someone else who paid their own money for it. Someone's labor went into owning that property. Therefore, they have the final say on what happens to that property. Period. End of story. Now, you mentioned improvements, so I'm going to speak to that real quick as well. Any improvements made by a squatter were not asked for or authorized by the owner, so the owner owes nothing for that. If they did, then I could come mow your lawn, prune your bushes, fix your cracked driveway, and more without your consent, then demand that you pay me for it later. That's not how any of this works. That is the mentality of the windshield washers on the streets of New York. I didn't ask you to clean my goddamned windshield, so I don't owe you jack shit for it. Drake's next question is, much of property throughout history was gotten coercively. Can we really just say that going forward we will all follow the nap, but anyone before now, too bad, so sad. The current starting point will just be kept for the most part. Drake, that's another great question. Unfortunately, we have to have a starting point somewhere or big, huge swaths of property will be completely unowned. Sadly, throughout history, there have been very few records kept of ownership of property until the last couple of 100 years. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to find out the original owner of any given piece of property going back further than that. Now, that's not anybody's fault, so there can be no tort here. Records just weren't kept the way that they are now. But if, however, some documented evidence existed about the original owner of a property, and that the property in question was gained through illegal means or fraud or coercion, then yes, I fully support a case being made that the property could be returned or some form of restitution could be agreed to. The issue then is what happens to the money that the latest owner paid for that property. He's not the one who committed fraud. He bought a legitimate piece of property correctly. I mean, that's a tough one to answer, and I hope that private courts and men much smarter than myself would make a decision that made all parties as whole as possible. And Drake's final question is, should there be reparations for those drafted into the Vietnam War? For those jailed for marijuana? Now this one is finally a simple question, thanks Drake. Of course there should be. In both of these cases, men were kidnapped from their lives and forced to either be caged or to fight and kill and possibly die. These people were not harming anyone, they were just going about their lives, and their lives were turned upside down based on the whims of someone with perceived authority. If I've ever seen a case for reparations, these two instances certainly fit. Drake, thank you for all of those great questions. Next, I have a couple of questions from a new supporter, John C. He asks, newer listener here, so you've probably answered this. What do you consider the best book for introducing people to the liberty movement? Also, what is your favorite calibers of ammo? Actually, John, I've never answered either of these questions before, so thanks for the questions. I'm not sure I could point to a single book as the best for introducing people to the liberty movement because there are just so many different types of people that respond differently to different ideas. For example, one book that had a huge impact on me was For a New Liberty by Murray Rothbard. But that book is a slog, it's huge, and it's hard to get through for the average person. But it was a perfect fit for me, someone who enjoys long, analytical books, though. Another book that had a huge impact on me was Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Now, many people, including many libertarians, are very critical of this book, but it certainly opened my eyes to many things that led me on a journey that took me not only to my libertarianism, but also to my atheism. Another book that really helped me along my journey is The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. I was already a libertarian when I read this, but, much like For a New Liberty, this book helped me to be an anarchist. But finally, I want to mention Neither Bullets Nor Ballots by Carl Wagner, Wendy McElroy, and George H. Smith. Now, this book is the one book that convinced me 100% that non-political voluntarism is the best and only route for liberty. Because the means justify the ends. The ends do not justify the means. You can get that book in either print or audiobook read by me at essentiallibertarianism.com/books. And if you order it from that link, essentiallibertarianism.com/books, I'll get a little kickback for that, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. On to your other question. My favorite caliber of ammo, man, that's perhaps one of the toughest questions I've gotten in this segment. For rifles, I love shooting my 5.56 AR-15. It's a light round, I can carry tons of rounds, and it has pretty good stopping power. However, there are times when my 7.62 by 39 is just necessary for its massive stopping power and penetration abilities, and it's just fun to shoot. And sometimes nothing will do the trick like a 50 caliber. For pistols, though, I carry my Colt 1911 Compact every day chambered in .45, and I love that gun. I bought this gun the day after I turned 21, and I've put hundreds of dollars in upgrades into it, and it is my baby. But let me tell you, after shooting my wife's Springfield XDM chambered in .40, I've seriously been considering changing daily carry weapons. I mean, that thing is just a tack driver, and the ballistics behind the .40 caliber are no joke. It is a hell of a round, and it doesn't beat the shit out of your hands when you go on an extended range visit like my .45 does. John, thanks so much for those questions. Guys, that's it for this week. I still have some questions in the queue for the next time I do this segment, but keep the questions coming in, guys. Thanks so much for participating in this fun segment with me. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite surgery patient, Jessica, for her help with the show. Keep Jessica and I and our family in your thoughts for the next couple of days. The day this episode drops on Tuesday, April 30th, Jessica will be going in for her first of 2 back-to-back surgeries for some issues she's been having. So definitely keep us in your thoughts. Thanks so much, guys. For the show notes of this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/129. I have 5 new supporters this week. Holy shit, guys. First, Pete Mance Raider Raymond from the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast started a $1 per episode donation through Patreon. Thank you, brother, so much. Can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Next, Joseph M. and John C. both became $1 per episode supporters through Patreon. Thank you so much, guys. You guys rock. Bullwhip Cracker became a $5 per month supporter through Subscribestar. That is awesome, man. Thank you so much. And finally, Hugh L. is back as a $10 per month supporter using Subscribestar. Brother, thank you so much. So glad to have you back. So thanks to Pete, Joseph, John, Bullwhip Cracker, Hugh, and all of my awesome supporters, I'm at $267.57 per episode, or 53.51% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thank you for all your support, guys, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I'll be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I really want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or monthly using Subscribestar, or using cryptocurrencies through Bitbacker. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I have one new Apple podcast review this week. Evil Clot says, "Off the grid thinking. Tell it like it is, man. Keep fighting the good fight and keep your head down. Your voice of dissent is needed in the world. Keep striking the root." Thanks, Evil Clot. Keep striking the root indeed. And if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids like Evil Clot are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.